My name is Lacey, and I thought my husband was taking me to a romantic getaway for our anniversary. Instead, he drove me to his secret new house, where he and his parents planned for us to live. Surprise! Evan exclaimed, gesturing proudly at the sprawling two-story home before us. What do you think? I blinked, struggling to process the scene.
I.
I don't understand. What is this place? It's our new home, sweetheart, he beamed, wrapping an arm around my waist. I've been working on it for months. Before I could respond, the front door burst open. Evan's parents, Meredith and Douglas, emerged with matching grins. Welcome home, darling, Meredith trilled, enveloping me in a suffocating hug. Isn't it just perfect? I extracted myself from her embrace, forcing a smile. It's unexpected. Evan, can we talk for a moment? He waved dismissively. Later, honey. Let's take the grand tour first. As we stepped inside, my heart sank. The decor was a carbon copy of Meredith and Douglas's home, all antiques and floral prints. Nothing reflected my taste or style. And here's the best part, Douglas announced, leading us to a wing off the main living area. Your mother and I will be staying in this guest suite. We'll be one big, happy family. I felt the blood drain from my face. You're moving in with us. Meredith laughed, a shrill sound that set my teeth on edge. Of course, dear. We wouldn't miss this for the world. I turned to Evan, searching his face for any sign that this was all an elaborate joke. But he just smiled, oblivious to my growing horror. Isn't it great, Lace? We'll never have to worry about them being alone as they get older. I forced myself to take a deep breath. Evan, can I speak with you privately?
Now.
He frowned but followed me to a quiet corner. What's wrong? I thought you'd be thrilled. Thrilled, I hissed. You built an entire house without telling me, and now your parents are moving in? When exactly were you planning to discuss this with me? He had the audacity to look confused. I wanted it to be a surprise. You're always talking about how we need more space. For us, Evan. Not for your parents to invade our lives. Hey, he said sharply. That's my family you're talking about. They've done so much for us. I opened my mouth to argue further, but Meredith's voice cut through the tension. Lacey, dear, come help me in the kitchen. I want to show you where everything is. As I followed her, my mind raced. This wasn't just a house, it was a trap. And I had a sinking feeling I just walked right into it. I woke to the smell of bacon wafting through the house. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then reality crashed down, and I groaned into my pillow. Lacey, dear, breakfast is ready. Meredith's shrill voice pierced through the door. I dragged myself out of bed, steeling myself for another day of invasion. In the kitchen, Meredith bustled around, rearranging my carefully organized cupboards. There you are. I've made your favorite blueberry pancakes. Actually, I'm allergic to blueberries, I reminded her for the third time this week. She waved dismissively. Oh, nonsense. A little fruit won't hurt you. I bit my tongue and reached for the coffee pot, only to find it empty. Evan and Douglas already left for work, Meredith chirped. I thought we could spend the day redecorating your office. It's so plain. My heart raced. My office is fine, Meredith. I have a big project due dash. Lacey, she interrupted, her tone sharp. When are you going to give up this silly freelancing nonsense? A proper wife should be focused on her home, not playing with computers all day. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A client, wondering why I'd missed our morning call. I excused myself and retreated to my office, locking the door behind me. Hours later, a knock startled me from my work. Evan poked his head in, frowning. Mom says you've been in here all day. She's upset you didn't help with dinner. I took a deep breath. Evan, we need to talk about boundaries. Your parents are dash. They're family, Lacey. He cut me off. And they're doing us a huge favor by being here. The least you could do is show some gratitude. Gratitude? I sputtered. For what? Criticizing everything I do? Rearranging our entire lives without my input? Evan's face hardened. I thought you'd be happy to have help around the house. Maybe if you weren't so selfish dash. Selfish. I stood up, anger boiling over. I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't want to move. I didn't want your parents living with us, and I certainly didn't want my entire life turned upside down. Keep your voice down, Evan hissed. You're being hysterical. I stared at him, suddenly seeing a stranger where my husband used to be. I can't do this anymore, Evan. Something has to change. He shook his head, disappointment etched across his face. The only thing that needs to change is your attitude. Family comes first, Lacey. It's time you learned that. As he walked away, leaving me alone in my office sanctuary, I realized with a sinking heart that this invasion was far from over. And if I wanted to survive it, I'd have to find a way to fight back. I was searching for a misplaced flash drive when I stumbled upon a folder hidden in Evan's desk drawer. Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it. My blood ran cold as I scanned the documents inside. Mortgage papers, loan agreements, all with my name on them, but I'd never signed a thing. What are you doing? Evan's voice made me jump. I spun around, clutching the papers. Care to explain why there's a mortgage in my name that I never agreed to? His face paled. Lacey, I can explain dash. Please do, I snapped. Because from where I'm standing, this looks like fraud. Evan ran a hand through his hair. It's not what you think. The bank wouldn't approve the loan without both our names. I was going to tell you, but dash. But what? I interrupted. You decided to commit identity theft instead? Don't be so dramatic, he scoffed. It's our house. What's mine is yours, remember? I laughed bitterly. Is it? Because last I checked, I had no say in any of this. The house, your parents moving in, you made all those decisions without me. I did it for us. Evan shouted. For our future. Our future. I waved the papers in his face. You mean the future, where I'm on the hook for a mortgage I never agreed to? His eyes hardened. You're being ungrateful. Do you know how hard I worked to make this happen? Ungrateful. I felt like I was suffocating. Evan, this is illegal. If anything happens, my credit is ruined. My future is ruined. He grabbed the papers from my hand. Nothing's going to happen. You're overreacting as usual. As usual? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. When did you become this person? The Evan I married would never dash. Never what? He sneered. Never put his family first? Never try to build a better life for us. I shook my head, fighting back tears. This isn't better, Evan. This is a nightmare. The only nightmare here is your attitude, he spat. Maybe if you stopped being so selfish and started appreciating what you have dash. What I have, I interrupted. What I have is a husband who lies to me, in-laws who criticize my every move, and a life I never asked for. Evan's face twisted with anger. If you're so unhappy, maybe you should leave. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with finality. I stared at him, this stranger wearing my husband's face, and realized with a sinking heart that maybe I should. But as I turned to walk away, a chilling thought stopped me in my tracks. If I left now, I'd be leaving with nothing, and thanks to Evan's deception, potentially owing everything. I needed a plan, and fast. The tension in the dining room was thick enough to cut with a knife. I pushed my food around my plate, appetite long gone, as Meredith's voice grated on my last nerve. You know, Lacey dear, I was just telling Evan how wonderful it would be to have a grandchild running around the house, she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. I gripped my fork tighter. We've discussed this, Meredith. Evan and I aren't ready for children yet. Douglas chimed in. Not ready? You're not getting any younger, you know. Tick-tock. I felt Evan stiffen beside me, but he remained silent. My cheeks burned with humiliation and anger. Meredith leaned forward, her voice sickly sweet. I just worry, dear. A woman your age should have started a family by now. And Evan would make such a wonderful father. Mom. Evan finally spoke up, but his tone was weak, placating. Let's change the subject. I'm only saying what we're all thinking, Meredith continued, undeterred. Maybe if you focus less on your little computer drawings and more on being a proper wife dash. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. Excuse me, I muttered, fleeing the room. In the hallway, I leaned against the wall, trying to steady my breathing. That's when I heard their voices, low and conspiratorial, drifting from the dining room. "Son, you need to think about your future," Douglas was saying. "You're young, successful. You deserve someone who can give you a family." "Dad, please," Evan sighed. "Lacey and I are fine." Meredith's voice cut in, sharp and insistent. "Are you really, Evan? Because from where we're sitting, she's holding you back. There are plenty of lovely girls at the country club who would jump at the chance to start a family with you." My heart pounded in my chest as I waited for Evan to defend me, to shut down this ridiculous conversation. But his response made my blood run cold. I don't know, Mom. "Maybe you're right. I'll think about it." I stumbled back, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. Was this really happening? Was Evan actually considering leaving me because I wouldn't, give him children on his parents' timetable? As I retreated to my office, locking the door behind me, a cold determination settled over me. I'd been trying to make this work, to be the perfect wife and daughter-in-law. But it was clear now that nothing I did would ever be enough for them. It was time to stop playing nice. If Evan and his parents wanted a war, they were about to get one. And I'd be damned if I went down without a fight. The next morning, I steeled myself and marched into the kitchen, determined to confront Evan about the conversation I'd overheard. But Meredith intercepted me, her smile sharp as a knife. "Lacey, dear, we need to talk," she said, steering me towards the living room. Evan and Douglas were already there, their faces grim. My stomach churned. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Meredith produced a folder from behind her back. "We've come to a decision, Lacey. This situation isn't working for anyone." She slid a document across the coffee table. My eyes widened as I read the title. "Petition for divorce." "What is this?" I sputtered, looking from Meredith to Evan. "It's quite simple," Meredith continued, her voice cold. "Either you start behaving like a proper wife, give up this silly career, focus on starting a family, or you sign these papers and leave." Without a cent, I turned to Evan, disbelief etched across my face. "You're okay with this?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. "It's for the best, Lace. We want different things." "Different things?" I echoed, anger rising. "Or, do you mean your parents want different things for you?" Douglas cleared his throat. "Now, Lacey, let's be reasonable. You've had your fun playing career woman, but it's time to grow up. Evan needs a real partner." "A real partner?" I shot back. "You mean a doormat who'll do whatever you say?" Meredith's eyes flashed. "Watch your tone, young lady. We're offering you a choice here. Be grateful." I laughed bitterly. Grateful? For being threatened and manipulated? For having my husband and his parents try to bully me into giving up everything I am? "Everything you are is holding Evan back," Meredith snapped. "Now, are you going to be reasonable? Or do we need to make this ugly?" I stood, shaking with fury. "You want ugly? I'll show you ugly. I know about the mortgage fraud, Evan. How do you think that'll look to your precious country club friends?" Evan paled. "Lacey, don't dash." "Don't what?" I interrupted. "Don't stand up for myself? Don't fight back against this insanity." I turned to leave, but Meredith's voice stopped me cold. "If you walk out that door, you'll have nothing. We'll make sure of it." I looked back at them, Meredith's smug smile, Douglas's stern frown, and Evan's conflicted face. In that moment, I realized I already had nothing. My marriage, my home, my sense of security, it was all a lie. "You can't take what I never really had," I said quietly and walked out. As I closed the door behind me, I heard Evan call my name, but it was too late. The line had been drawn, and I knew which side I was on. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows as I paced the living room. Hurricane warnings blared from the TV, urging immediate evacuation. I grabbed my phone, dialing Evan's number for the 10th time. Straight to voicemail. "Evan, where are you? We need to leave now." I shouted into the void. Just then, headlights swept across the driveway. I rushed to the window, relief flooding through me. But it vanished as quickly as it came when I saw Evan helping his parents into the car, luggage in tow. I burst out the front door, rain pelting my face. Evan, what's going on? He turned, startled. Lacey, get back inside. It's dangerous out here. Where are you going? I demanded, struggling to be heard over the wind. Meredith leaned out the car window. We're evacuating, dear. Surely you've made your own arrangements. My blood ran cold. What? Evan, you were supposed to come get me. He had the decency to look ashamed. I thought you'd already left. Mom said dash. She said what? I spat, fury rising. That I'd abandoned you? That I didn't need your help. Douglas honked the horn. Son, we need to go. The roads will be closing soon. Evan looked torn, glancing between me and his parents. Lacey, I'm sorry. We can't wait. There's no room in the car with all our things. All your things. I echoed, disbelieving. What about me, Evan? Your wife. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Look, just call an Uber or something. We'll meet up at the shelter. Before I could respond, Meredith called out, Evan now. With one last conflicted look, he jumped into the car. I watched, stunned, as they drove away, leaving me alone in the howling wind and rain. Reality crashed down as another gust nearly knocked me off my feet. I was alone, abandoned, with a hurricane bearing down on us. Stumbling back inside, I grabbed my emergency bag and laptop, hands shaking as I tried to book a ride. But it was too late. All services were suspended. Panic clawed at my throat as I realized the gravity of my situation. How could Evan do this? How could he leave me behind? As the storm raged outside, a strange calm settled over me. This was it. The final betrayal. Any lingering doubt about Evan's true nature evaporated like mist in the hurricane winds. I'd given him everything. My trust, my love, my future. And in return, he'd left me to face this tempest alone. Well, if I was going to weather the storm, I'd do it on my own terms. No more waiting for rescue. No more hoping Evan would suddenly remember he had a wife. It was time to save myself. The storm had passed, but the fury inside me raged on. I sat in a small motel room, my laptop open before me, fingers flying across the keyboard. After barely escaping the hurricane, I'd found temporary shelter and immediately set to work. Evan's betrayal had ignited a fire within me. No more playing the victim. It was time to fight back. I dove into Evan and Douglas's digital records, my graphic design skills proving unexpectedly useful in navigating complex financial documents. Hours blurred together as I pieced together a disturbing puzzle of fraud and deceit. Got you, I muttered, uncovering a trail of falsified loan applications and forged signatures. The mortgage on our house was just the tip of the iceberg. Douglas had been using Evan's position at the bank to orchestrate a complex web of financial fraud. And Evan, whether willingly or under his father's influence, was neck-deep in it. My phone buzzed. Evan's name flashed on the screen. I ignored it, focusing on downloading and securing evidence. He'd made his choice when he left me behind. Now I was making mine. As dawn broke, I sat back, exhausted but triumphant. I had everything I needed to bring their house of cards tumbling down. A knock at the door startled me. Lacey, are you in there? Evan's voice. I froze, heart pounding. Please, I've been looking everywhere for you. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I approached the door silently, peering through the peephole. Evan stood there, looking disheveled and distraught. Go away, Evan. I called out, my voice steady. Lacey, please. Let me explain. I never meant to leave you behind. Mom said dash. I don't care what your mother said. I interrupted. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. What does that mean? His voice took on an edge of panic. I smiled grimly. It means I'm done, Evan. Done being manipulated, lied to, and treated like I don't matter. I know about the fraud. All of it. Silence fell on the other side of the door. Then, Lacey, whatever you think you know, you're wrong. Don't do anything rash. His tone had shifted from pleading to threatening. It only strengthened my resolve. Goodbye, Evan, I said firmly. Tell your parents I said hello. Oh, and you might want to lawyer up. As his protests faded down the hallway, I turned back to my laptop. With a deep breath, I began composing emails to the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit and the State Bar Association. The storm had passed, but for Evan and his family, the real tempest was just beginning. And this time, I'd be the one controlling the winds of change. I stood in the courthouse hallway, my heart pounding as I waited for the judge's decision. Months of preparation had led to this moment. Across from me, Evan and his parents huddled with their lawyers, their faces drawn and pale. The courtroom doors opened, and my attorney emerged, a smile playing at her lips. "Lacey, it's time." As we filed back in, I caught Evan's eye. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I'd once loved. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by a mask of cold indifference. The judge cleared his throat. After reviewing the evidence presented, this court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Lacey Matthews. A collective gasp rippled through the room. I sat, stunned, as the judge continued. Mr. Evans and Mr. Douglas Evans are hereby ordered to pay restitution for the fraudulent financial activities uncovered. Furthermore, all assets obtained through these illegal means will be seized. Meredith let out a wail, while Douglas slumped in his seat. Evan just stared straight ahead, his jaw clenched. Additionally, the judge added, the divorce is granted, with a settlement heavily favoring Mrs. Matthews due to the circumstances of fraud and emotional distress. As we left the courtroom, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. It was over. I'd won. Outside, reporters swarmed, shouting questions about the high-profile case. I spotted Evan and his parents being ushered into a waiting car, their reputations in tatters. My lawyer turned to me, beaming. "Congratulations, Lacey. You did it." I nodded, a mix of emotions swirling inside me. "Thank you for everything." As the crowd dispersed, I found myself alone on the courthouse steps. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the city. I took a deep breath, savoring the moment. My phone buzzed with a message from a design firm I'd been courting. They were offering me a position as lead designer in New York City. I smiled, realizing the world was wide open now. No more suffocating house, no more overbearing in-laws, no more living someone else's life. As I walked down the steps, I caught my reflection in a window. The woman staring back at me was stronger, wiser, and finally free. The ordeal had been painful, but it had forged me into someone I could be proud of. Someone who wouldn't let anyone, not a husband, not in-laws, not anyone, dictate her worth or her future. I hailed a taxi, ready to start the next chapter of my life. As the city lights blurred past, I felt a sense of excitement I hadn't experienced in years. The storm had passed, and I had not only survived, I had thrived. Whatever came next, I knew I could handle it, because now, finally, I was in control of my own story.